inclusion of an app requiring the operation of the restaurant, provided that the customers are vaccinated, including the workers of the restaurant. That is the legal basis. The employer can now require the waitresses or the workers in the restaurant to be vaccinated.
You heard Labor Secretary Silvestre Bello confirming that operators of restaurants and personal care services in NCR may now require their workers to get vaccinated.
This is a reversal of the agency's previous pronouncements that schemes such as no vaccine, no work, and no vaccine, no pay are illegal. So what changed? The latest IATF resolution. Good evening, I'm Gretchen Ho.
I'm Robbie Alampa. You're watching The Big Story. The Labor Department is now leaving it to the employer's discretion if they will withhold salaries of employees who do not want to get vaccinated against COVID-19 using the IATF resolution as legal basis.
But just yesterday, the Justice Department has reiterated that there is no law on mandatory vaccination of employees just yet. Marlene Aycaide with The Big Story.
This restaurant in Marikina has required all of its employees to be fully vaccinated against COVID. The restaurant owner himself arranged for the vaccination schedule of his staff.
Siyempre, importante rin naman sa akin ng tao ko. Kaya parang family mo, tas kailangan safe, di ba?
But not everybody agreed to JAB's mandatory vaccination policy. Like Ronnie, who proudly exclaimed that he is in good health even at 54 years old.
Sabi ko, respeto na lang. Kaya umayaw po ako. Karapatan ko naman po siguro yon na para yung mailabas ko yung sa loobin ko. Personal opinion po. Na hindi mo kailangan? Opo.
Ronnie eventually agreed after some pep talk from his boss. Other restaurants in Metro Manila may follow suit. The Labor Department is telling employers they may now compel workers to get vaccinated. Labor Secretary Silvestre Bello cites the latest IATF resolution as legal basis. It states that restaurants and personal care services may increase operational capacity provided that customers and employees are vaccinated. But he clarifies this will only be for purposes of withholding salary.
The recourse of the employer is to withhold only the pay of the worker, not to terminate. There is no expiry date because the position, the resolution of the IATF is that the workers in the restaurant should be vaccinated.
Prior to this resolution, DOLE had said that no vaccine, no work, and the no vaccine, no pay schemes are illegal. The Trade Union Congress of the Philippines warned that mandatory vaccination may result in further unemployment.
Marami sa mga gagawa ang mawawalan ng trabaho. Ang problema kasi dito sa kasalukuyan ay gusto nang magpabakuna ng mga magagawa. Subalit, kulang ang supply ng vaccines dito sa ating bansa.
On Wednesday, the Justice Department clarified that there is no law on mandatory vaccination of employees. The DOJ cited Section 12 of the COVID-19 Vaccination Program Act of 2021, which states that vaccine cards, which prove an individual's inoculation against COVID, are not considered as mandatory requirement for school, work, and government transactions. For News 5, Marlene Aycaide, we are One News.
To further clarify the Labor Department's vaccination requirements for workers, we have with us on the show Department of Labor Secretary Silvestre Bello III. Secretary Bello, welcome to The Big Story.
Yes. Good evening.
Good evening po. Sir, how does this square with what the DOJ recently said, that there is actually no law that can mandate no vaccine, no work?
That is true. That's correct. The position of the Department of Justice is correct. That you cannot make vaccine a reason to be unemployed or terminated because there is no law which requires us to be vaccinated. We are in a democratic country and we all have our own freedom of choice. So you cannot force anybody unless there is a law which will require you to undergo vaccination.
So ano po tong bagong policy ngayon? Basically, what's the difference? You're saying hindi naman termination, pero no pay.
Yeah, that's correct. Because under the law, you cannot withhold the salary of a worker or an employee except when there is a legal basis. Now, I was saying that the IATF resolution requires that all restaurants who will operate under a level 3 can have a capacity of 50% provided that all the workers in the restaurant are vaccinated. And so with the customers. So it is clear from the resolution of the IATF that workers of the restaurant should be vaccinated. That is the legal basis for the withholding of the salary of the employee.
What do you say, sir, to some labor groups that say, gusto naman namin magpabakuna, the problem is wala pang access lahat ng tao. And they're saying, hindi ba what would be more fair is if merong patakaran na ganito, once we can reassure that everybody has equal access and capability to get vaccinated.
Yeah, that's also true. Pero ang ano kasi dito is that the worker is not terminated. He continues to be employed. His status of employment is preserved, except that he will be asked by the employer not to report to work because IATF requires all the workers in the restaurant to be vaccinated. Kung hindi nga magagawa yun, may liability yung employer sa IATF resolution.
Okay. Labor Secretary Silvestre Rebello, maraming salamat po. Mandatory vaccination has long been an issue even in the United States. Many workers may have been getting inoculated after cities and companies required vaccination, but many are also facing potential job losses. Vaccination rate has gone up by 20% in the U.S. after the mandates were introduced in several states. But with that comes the risk of thousands of workers going jobless. The latest mandates affect an average of 100 million people, or 2/3 of the U.S. workforce. The White House has been a major force behind the drive.
These are the other big stories tonight. Optimism running high as downtrend in cases continues. The health department now sees Metro Manila loosening up to alert level 1 by December. With the minors and seniors now allowed to go out for essential purposes, the tourism department wants to take things a step further, permit leisure travel without age limits. And the Bible teaches us behave like children to enter the kingdom of heaven. And that's exactly what a 10-year-old did, but this time to get his hands on the Pope's skull cap. These big stories after the break.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. Some good news for the tourism industry as the Philippines is still Asia's leading beach and diving destination in 2021.
To better maximize that honor, the tourism department is now pushing for the removal of age restrictions on leisure travels. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez gives us a front seat to the story.
For the fifth time, the Philippines has been hailed as Asia's top beach destination at the World's Travel Awards. It also won Asia's leading dive destination award for the third straight year. It's a rare spot of good news for an industry that has been battered by the pandemic. The tourism department had been pushing for leisure travel to be allowed once more with no age restrictions this time.
So the DOT asked, pwedeng, kasi point to point naman, kung pwede naman, no age restrictions because we all know that Filipinos travel as a family.
But travel outside and into Manila for seniors and minors is subject to one condition.
Mga minor de edad ay po pwedeng bumiyahe provided kasama sila ng kanilang mga magulang or isang adult na guardian, maski hindi ho bakunado.
In line with this, airlines have also begun relaxing restrictions. Budget carrier AirAsia said its 12 destinations will now accept senior citizens aged 65 and older and minors below 18 years old. However, those traveling from NCR would still have to comply with requirements set by the local government unit of their destination. Meanwhile, the IATF says it's ramping up vaccination in the provinces, though distribution remains a challenge.
Napakadami na pong supply. Binuhusan na po natin ang Region 3 at Region 4-8 at iba't ibang mga probinsya para po mapataas na yung overall vaccination rate ng Pilipinas.
Under Alert Level 3, staycations are also allowed, though unvaccinated guests will still need to present a negative PCR test. Airbnb says it's already seeing a spike in demand for vacation rentals in Zambales, Batangas, and Tagaytay. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez, We Are One News.
The Health Department said Metro Manila may be placed under Alert Level 1 in December if the downward trend in COVID-19 cases continues. That is, October 20 saw a record 3,656 new cases, the lowest since July 14. But the Health Department still acknowledged a possible surge in 4 months' time with Alert Level 3 in place. The agency also wants to ramp up vaccination programs in provinces, beginning with Region 3 and Region 4A, citing their substantial contribution to the economy.
We will appeal to the local chief executives to ramp up their daily job rate, and we will present to them their targets.
Just before cemeteries close ahead of All Saints and All Souls Day, thousands of Metro Manila residents are flocking to cemeteries to visit their dearly departed. Gerard de la Peña tells us more.
Visitors have started going to the Manila North Cemetery a week before Undas, ahead of the closure of NCR cemeteries from October 29 to November 3. Since Monday, volume in the property has averaged between 2,000 to 3,000 visitors daily. Last weekend, average foot traffic reached 10,000. Pre-pandemic, foot traffic goes up as much as 2 million during All Saints Day.
Siguro naisip na rin po ng tao na malabo tayo ulit magkaroon ng undas. Kaya sinamantala na rin nila yung mga vacant days nila na pumupunta na sila rito at dumadalaw.
Authorities man the entry points to prevent visitors from bringing in prohibited items such as sharp blades, flammable materials, drones, loudspeakers, alcohol, cigarettes, and things that can be used for gambling. Senior citizens as well as those who brought children were barred from entering. This follows the IATF resolution which only allows children to go out to avail essential goods and services.
Pinayagan na namin yan eh. Talagang kumbaga nagiging barkadahan ang punta dito. Hindi naman po talaga ang purpose, even po dun sa libing. Dumadami sila.
Dante, who brought his children with him, had no choice but to leave them at the cemetery's gates.
Kung may kasama kayong bata.
Gusto nila makita yung mami nila.
Alam niyo po bang bawal?
Hindi po alam. Ngayon ko lang po nalaman.
The Manila North Cemetery will be closed to visitors on October 29 until November 3, but will remain open for interment and cremation services. For News 5, Gerard de la Peña, We Are One News.
For the big story in sports, chess grandmaster Wesley Saw added another trophy to his collection by winning the 2021 U.S. Chess Championship at the St. Louis Chess Club. Saw won a grand prize of $50,000 after emerging triumphant in the 12-player field. The 28-year-old Filipino-American won a playoff tiebreaker against Fabiano Caruana and Sam Sevian, beating his opponents in a rapid playoff. Saw now has 3 U.S. chess titles under his belt after capturing his first in 2017. Time for another quick break. When we return, some presidential aspirants have started to make movements on the ground, from visiting farmers to victims of extrajudicial killings. And the church has time and again taught us about having childlike faith, and a 10-year-old embodied just that as he stole the show during the papal audience.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. It may not be campaign period just yet, but presidential aspirants Isko Moreno and Leni Robredo are already making rounds.
As early as now, political analysts are giving their 2 cents on how either candidate should fashion their campaign. Just Dos Santos has this story.
From walking the streets of Tondo, Manila Mayor and now presidential aspirant Isko Moreno made his way to Tarlac, accompanied by his Aksyon Demokratiko slate. He vowed to support the causes of farmers, from cold storage facilities to cracking down on smugglers. But his biggest promise yet, a 50% tax cut on power and oil at a time when pump prices have gone up for 8 straight weeks.
Pag binawasan ko ang buwis, nawalan ba gobyerno? Nawalan. Tama? Nabawasan ng kita ang gobyerno. Tama? Pag binawasan ko buwis, nawalan ng gobyerno, sino nakinabang naman? Tao. Tao. Tama? O di magmumura na gas mo sa traktora.
The Manila Mayor might need to work double time. Political pundits believe his latest tirades against Vice President Leni Robredo might cost him his popularity.
Magkakaroon ng bump si Vice President Leni dahil marami naghihintay sa kanya. Baka magkaproblema po. Baka sa kanya kumuha si Leni dun sa kanyang bump, dun sa kanyang pagtaas.
Robredo has also started to make the rounds. On Wednesday, she attended the blessing and turnover of the cremated remains of the victims of extrajudicial killings. This comes ahead of her and running mate Senator Kiko Pangilinan's proclamation motorcade on Saturday. She also has a new message for supporters, urging them to wear pink from within.
Ipakita na ang pink hindi lang basta kulay, uri siya ng pamumuhay. Hindi lang siya damit o ribbon. Kulay siya ng pagkatao na bukas, nakikinig, nagmamahal.
Political science professor Louis Montemar told 1PHS sa Totoo Lang that while the sprouting of various sectoral groups backing Robredo's run is a boon, she has to be cautious about presenting herself as an anti-Marcos candidate.
I do not think that the VP will actually develop herself as an anti-BBM candidate. That will be the wrong strategy for her, really. I think she will build a very principled and issue-based campaign.
After all, Professor Llamas said, this election should go beyond the fight between good and evil. Jess De Los Santos, We Are One News.
Here are other election-related stories we're watching. Development and economics expert Walden Bello will be the running mate of presidential aspirant Leody de Guzman as confirmed by Laban ng Masa. Bello will substitute for Partido Lakas ng Masa's VP candidate Raquel Castillo. The tandem vows to forward a comprehensive agenda for regime and systemic change. Presidential aspirant and Senator Manny Pacquiao blames Energy Secretary Alfonso Cusi for the high cost of electricity in the country. During the Senate hearing on the proposed DOE budget for 2022, Pacquiao accused Cusi of being busy with politics as power costs continue to soar. The two belong to opposing sides within PDP Laban. Senator Panfilo Lacson says that the country's law enforcement authorities should be made accountable for the country's war on drugs. This comes after the Justice Department announced that it will review 52 cases related to the government's drug war. Lacson said it's crucial to show the International Criminal Court that the government can hold these officers accountable.
In world news, a medical breakthrough as a pig kidney was successfully transplanted into a human patient in a New York hospital. The operation was done in NYU Langone Health on a brain-dead patient with a dysfunctional kidney. With the family's consent, the procedure was done successfully without triggering any immediate reactions from the patient's body. Prior to that, the pig used had its genes altered, purging it of any molecule that will be rejected by the human immune system. Experts consider this helpful in reducing shortages of human organs for transplant.
Another big story in sports. After narrowly missing the podium in the Tokyo 2020 Olympics, gymnast Kaloy Yulo is coming back stronger by making it to 3 event finals in the 50th FIG World Artistic Gymnastics Championship in Japan. A look into his strong qualifiers in my report. It was the perfect start to Kaloy Yulo's redemption story. He put on an impressive show in the qualifying round of the 50th FIG World Artistic Championships in Kitakyushu, Japan. Unlike in the Olympics, Kaloy and his Japanese coach opted to participate in just 3 events. Kaloy started the night off strong in the vault, impressing the crowd and the judges. In his second attempt, Kaloy perfectly executed the Dragulescu, earning him an average score of 14.808 points, good for a top 3 finish.
Kami nagulat kami talaga, lalo na nung second vault. Nung first vault, medyo okay, sige. Pero nung second vault talaga, biglang napatayo lahat, tapos kumagat na. Ganda kasi ng performance talaga.
Then just minutes later, Kaloy followed up with an ever stronger performance in the parallel bars. His performance placed him first with a score of 15.566 points.
I did what I really wanted, but the P-bar is, I was really shocked. I didn't know, like, I thought I couldn't go to finals because I'm not really satisfied about it.
To cap off his qualifiers, Kaloy showed once again why he is one of the best in the floor exercise. Kaloy upped the notch by adding another twist in his opening pass, which is a double twisting double layout. His clean performance earned him the top spot with 15.116 points.
Iba lang yung first pass niya noong 2019, ginawa niya lang is full twist, double layout straight. Ngayon na ay double straight na. And sobrang hirap nun. Masabi ko mas confident siya ngayon sa floor.
Gymnastics Association President Cynthia Carrion says Kaloy is fueled by his underwhelming performance in Tokyo.
After seeing what, the disappointment that we all went through, the whole Philippines, he got motivated. Really, now he's a different Kaloy.
Fewer mistakes and a more relaxed mindset. That will be the game plan for Team Kaloy for the event finals.
Naniniwala ako ngayong finals, mas magagampanan niya yung role niya. Mas magiging relax siya.
Kaloy Yulo will defend his world title on the floor exercise finals on Saturday, 3:10 p.m. Manila time. He will then try to win medals in the parallel bars and vault finals on Sunday. Gretchen Ho, We Are One News.
A 10-year-old boy with some limitations became the center of attention at Pope Francis' weekly general audience in the Vatican. The boy approached Pope Francis before the papal audience started. Security officials did not stop him. The boy shook the Pope's hand and jumped up and down as His Holiness spoke, incidentally, about freedom. The boy frolicked on the stage to his heart's content. He also pointed at the Pope's skull cap several times, even trying to take it. Pope Francis eventually gave the boy his cap and thanked him for teaching everybody a lesson from the Gospel of Matthew. If you do not behave like children, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven.
Los unos de los otros por amor, porque toda la ley.
Regolare gli studenti dello studio.
If I do that too when I see the Pope, can I make that an excuse?
Subukan mo.
Di ba magkakutla ako ng Bible verse?
Pero maganda kay Papa Francesco, di ba? Consistently, he's always loved children. He's always showed it in his actions.
And I think if you want some good vibes, better follow him on Twitter. Follow him on Twitter. He's full of positivity and hope. Rightly so. Tama naman, di ba?
Siguro siya na ang peg ko sa social media. Baka matuto ko.
Hindi ko alam kung bagay. That wraps up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250.
Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. Mask on.
Wash hands.
And stay safe, Philippines. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. We are One News. Have a good evening.